Hey y'all, okay, let's get started. So this is going to be our very first review for Spanish 2. In Spanish 1, when we started, we learned about nouns. Nouns in Spanish are very different from our nouns in English. In English, they don't really have a gender, they just have number, like singular thing like a tree versus a plural thing like trees. Well, in Spanish, they go a step further, and so all Spanish nouns must agree in gender, meaning masculine or feminine. Whenever we have a masculine noun, it normally ends with an O, and whenever we have a feminine noun, it normally ends with an A. Obviously, that's not the case all the time, but for right now, that's what we're going with. And they must agree in number as well, meaning singular or plural. Plural normally ends with an S. Going along with nouns, there's also articles. In English, we have two articles that we use all the time. One is the, and then one is a or an, like the boy or a boy. And in Spanish, these follow the same rules that nouns do. They must also agree in gender and in number. So it's two things instead of just one thing. Okay, so for the, we have 4 different ways to say the because we have to have a masculine, a feminine one, a singular one, and a plural one. This kind of looks like a Punnett square if you've ever taken biology, and we're going to do the exact same thing. So if our noun is masculine and singular, we're going to use L. If it's feminine and singular, we're going to use la. If it's masculine and plural, we're going to use los. And if it's feminine and plural, we're going to use las. So to determine if the noun is masculine or feminine, we're just going to look at the last letter. If it's an O, it's obviously masculine. If it's A, it's feminine. And to get the singular or plural, we're going to look at the end as well of a noun, and it's going to be an S or no S, and that's how you determine. The same thing happens whenever you have a or an. It's going to have 4 different ways as well because of the singular, plural, masculine, or feminine. But for a, it's going to be un or una. There is a slight meaning change whenever we get to the plural form of a or an. That's because we do the exact same thing in English. We're not going to say a tree and then A's trees. We're not going to say that at all. We're going to transform it to some, and so this is what happens right here. So the masculine plural form is going to be unos, and the feminine plural is going to be unas. Okay, so there are some examples on your sheet that take a minute right now and go ahead and try to fill them out as best as you can. So let's look at the first one. We have pero. We're going to look at the ending. It just is an O. So we know it's masculine because it ends with an O, and then we know it's singular because there's no S on it, so we're going to choose the L form. For perros, okay, it ends with an OS, so we're going to choose the option that ends with OS as well. For casa, it ends with an A, so we're going to choose the singular feminine form, the one that also ends with an A. And then for casas, we're going to choose las because it's plural and feminine. Here's an easy hint. If this ends in AS, so does this one. If this ends in A, so does this one. If this ends in an OS, so does this one. The singular masculine doesn't really follow that rule. The same thing happens for a or some. So let's look at these. So we have pero, it's going to be un, singular and masculine. Perros, it's going to be unos, plural and masculine. Casa is going to be una because it's singular and feminine, and then casas is going to be unas because it's plural and feminine. Continuing on with this exact same pattern are the adjectives. There is one slight difference in Spanish adjectives versus English adjectives. The adjective comes before the noun, like the pretty girl. But in Spanish, that's not the case. It comes after the noun. And so we're literally going to say the girl pretty. So make sure that all adjectives in Spanish come after the noun. And just like the articles, they have to agree in gender and in number. Okay, so there are some examples on your sheet as well, and we're going to use the adjective guapo, meaning handsome or pretty. So let's look at the first one, el chico. Okay, we're looking at the noun to determine whether it's masculine or feminine, and it's masculine because it's in an O, and it's singular because there's no S. El should tell you as well that it's singular and masculine. Since this is singular and masculine, this has to be singular and masculine too. And it has to go at the end. So el chico guapo. Okay, then we have los chicos and guapos. Okay, do you see the pattern? This ends in OS, this ends in OS, and so guapos has to end in OS as well. Then we have la chica guapa. This is the feminine singular form. And las chicas guapas. Okay, so AS, AS, AS.